What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father, Amazon Kindle Create Space. Uh, Accustomed to others doing the heavy lifting. Entitlement in a way. Um, we're gonna make this like a historical thing and a personal, not necessarily personal, but a people thing. You know what I'm saying? Like this country. Oh yeah, the link will be in the description box below. This country was built on, slavery. So most systems in this country are built on the premise that somebody takes credit for somebody else doing the heavy lifting. And this is more so geared to the people who want to take the credit. Because I noticed that, um, the bourgeoisie proletariat type of lifestyle that is part of this American culture, that people think them doing their own heavy lifting is beneath them. You know, when people use that term, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, this country never really pulled itself up by its bootstraps. You know what I'm saying? So you're dealing with that type of mindset where when you deal with people who are accustomed to other people's doing the hard work, it's an inconvenience. You know, you got young people who them getting a job takes away from their, say, teenage childhood fantasy of their American dream of just hitting a certain age and being rich and famous and just doing whatever they want to do, and just, people just giving them money for them to be them. Because and just, well, I can sing, or I'm pretty, or I can act, so the world is my oyster, give me everything. But without taking into consideration that somebody is actually probably behind you doing the heavy lifting. You may can sing, but who wrote the song? Who arranged the music? Who promoted it? You know, who went to the record stations? Who put in the hours to market it properly? You know what I'm saying? Like, who did all the paperwork when it comes to being able to benefit off of it? Was that you? Hmm. You get my point. Um, that's the issue, right? And that's the problem in itself, because when you're accustomed to other people's doing the heavy lifting, you don't know how to actually divvy up your cut, because you overpriced your work without understanding the price of everybody else's work. You know, same thing. Um, I guess you would say when you're talking about relationships. I don't care if they're family relationships, friendships, or relationships with the opposite sex. If you constantly looking at somebody else to be the initiator and heavy lifter, and they are the mover and the shaker in that relationship, you in some ways gonna also come off as the person who thinks that your presence is just as important as their talent, which is an asinine thing to think. You know, because if they take their talent away, what exactly does your presence bring to the table? You get this when, siblings, friends, couples, when somebody wants to throw a temper tantrum and act immature because they're not getting their way, and you should kowtow to them getting their way by you doing the work to make them feel better. when in essence you are going out of your way to do things for them that they will never do for you, because when it's time for them to make you do when it's time for them to do something to make you feel better, they're usually gonna be evasive, you know, because they're gonna feel like that's not my job. I'm not. You're the heavy lifter, not me. So you need to do some heavy lifting for me to make me feel good. And if you need to feel good, you need to lift for yourself, which creates a division. Because when you put a person in a situation like that, you also got to remember that once they're in that situation, you don't get to dictate how they do heavy lifting for themselves. Because if it doesn't involve you when they're doing what it takes to please themselves, you didn't do what it takes to help to make them feel special or make them feel good. You didn't do any heavy lifting for them. So sometimes people look at it as a selfless person as being selfish because you're accustomed to them doing heavy lifting for you, and when they actually are doing for their self-preservation is also the law of the land. You kind of feel slighted because you actually treat them in a way that you know you come before their self-preservation, and it creates a rift because that's something that you don't think of yourself, because you're using somebody else's heavy labor to uplift you, and you're not uplifting yourself. Um, I know I kind of repeated something there. I know I did. Um, but beyond that, there's also the idea of lacking skill. Because when you're accustomed to other people doing the heavy lifting, you become what you think is a boss because you got to pick up the phone and call this person. You need to do this and you need to do that. You think you're a manager or a supervisor, when in actuality, you're probably a child because you can't do these things for yourself. You can't do the grown up things to maintain your lifestyle. You need some person to come help you do things that a fairly reasonable adult would say I can do on my own. So while you think you're in a power position in a boss seat because you're not actually doing any heavy lifting and it's being done for you, you're actually in more ways than not crippling yourself, because at some point, when you're accustomed to other people doing the heavy lifting, they're going to leave you to lift for yourself because you become too heavy. Your demands become too heavy, and your demands are way more, are very much so higher than your work ethic. You know, you want the moon and the stars, but you're not even willing to give a grain of sand on the beach. So at the end of the day, you gotta lift. Let's see how far you get out of space to get to the moon and stars. You might have a moon and stars mentality or a moon and stars mouthpiece, but do you have the moon and stars work ethic to make your own rocket ship? You know, and that's part of the entitlement part of it. When you're accustomed to other people doing the heavy lifting, you don't necessarily have a clue on how to lift for yourself. And a lot of people deal with depression because of that. Because you're out here writing checks that your ass can't cash, because the checks you out here writing, you're expecting other people to cash them for you because you say so. And there goes a point where a person will do for you, then they will do to help you, and then what they'll do is leave you alone because You need to know these things at a certain point. That's how you wind up paying for goods and services in this country, because you're not willing to put in the time and effort to do the heavy lifting yourself to um, gain that type of respect. Like, very simply put, like, I like cookies, you know, but I can make my own cookies probably for cheaper with the ingredients than I can buy them in a grocery store. So, do am I? But I'm accustomed to famous Amos putting in all the cookie work. So you do that. Go ahead. I'm gonna go pick them cookies up because I'm accustomed to you doing the baking and I'm doing the eating. So, you know, this flour and egg and milk and chocolate chips and pecan and all that. That's beneath me, pimp, because that's your job. And it's that mentality that over time, do I even know how to make cookies? If it was needed for me to do so, I become a slave to wanting to use their service more so than wanting to use my own intelligence and intellect, even in an era where I can easily get online and find this out for myself, and which creates a problem in our society now, because that's what happens. You want somebody to even go online and figure it out for you and do it for you too. So yeah, when you're accustomed to somebody else doing the heavy lifting, you have issues. You create issues. All right.